Welcome everybody to our September call for the Higher Education Action Team here at Citizens Climate Lobby. If this is the first time you're joining us, the Higher Education Action Team is a part of CCL and CCE, Citizens Climate Education, that focuses on uniting higher ed leaders, so college students, college communities, faculty, and staff, to strategize about how best to incorporate and amplify youth voices in the climate movement and provide a support network for people like all of you who are interested in doing that work. We also, this year, rolled out a new initiative called Climate Career Connections in recognition of the fact that many of us are in college because we're looking for meaningful careers and ways that we can impact climate while we do those things. So every quarter, we host one of these monthly calls with a focus on showcasing one way that one can make a career in climate. And this quarter, we are speaking about sustainability. And we have two incredible sustainability professionals who have joined us tonight. So I'm going to just introduce them, read their bios to you, and then we'll get to know them a lot better over the course of the conversation. So first off, we have Kieran Ficken. She is the Director of Sustainability Programs at Measure to Improve, which is a sustainability consulting firm serving the fresh produce industry. Her recent projects have focused on sustainability strategy and supply chain engagement, always with an eye towards speeding the adoption of regenerative practices. Kieran holds an MBA in Global Impact Management and an MA in International Environmental Policy from the Middlebury Institute of International Studies, where she and I actually met in grad school. Her undergraduate degree is a BS in Environmental Studies, and it's from the University of Vermont. Kieran spends her free time cooking, mending, and volunteering at her local library and is currently based in New Jersey. So welcome, Kieran. Next, we have Gianna Sollitto, who serves as CCE and CCL's grant writer. She produces impactful, mobilizing development content and cultivating relationships with strategic partners. She's a passionate advocate for Citizens Climate's mission with strong personal convictions around equitable climate policy, sustainability, environmental justice, human rights, and low-waste living. Drawing from a diverse background in public relations, marketing, and event planning, prior to CCE/CCL, Gianna served as marketing and events coordinator for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Community Center in Newport, Rhode Island. She brings over 8 years of experience in nonprofits, copywriting, and engagement strategy to our development team. Gianna is a member of CCL's Diversity and Inclusion Working Group and recently founded CCL Sustainability Committee, which is just launching later this month. She is a lifelong Rhode Islander from North Scituate and currently resides in Providence, Rhode Island. She studied communication, marketing, and creative writing at Bryant University. And in her free time, you'll probably find her with a 35mm camera in hand, talking to her houseplants, thrift shopping, or enjoying good food with friends and family, which sounds like a great way to spend some free time. So welcome, Gianna. All right. With that, as I mentioned earlier in the call, feel free, all of our guests, to continue to introduce yourselves in the chat so that our speakers can get a sense of who's in the room. But we're going to jump right in and ask each of you, Kieran and Gianna, to tell us a little bit more about yourselves. Obviously, I've just read off each of your bios, but tell us something that's maybe not in that. And let's actually start with Gianna.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor, and I'm really passionate about helping young professionals find their path. So this is perfect. And if anyone wants to reach out following the call, my door is always open, virtually, that is. So as Stephanie mentioned, I'm CCL and CCE's grant writer. My work anniversary is tomorrow. It's actually my 1-year anniversary. My title is grant writer, but I have a hand in many things fundraising on the CCE and CCL development team. Prior to CCL, I had really very little experience with grant writing. So one of my first tips for anyone is to not judge a job title by its job title. And I'm a huge advocate for transferable skills and how you can market those. I founded the Sustainability Committee earlier this year and will be launching this month. My goal with that was to kind of just celebrate all the things that CCL is already doing to have a small carbon footprint and make sure we can really kind of cement those into our culture. So yeah, super happy to be here.
Thank you, Gianna. Kieran?
Yeah, so first I want to just echo what Gianna said. It's really great to be here with all of you. If you have more questions or we do not get to your question, please feel free to reach out to me later. I would be happy to hear from you anytime, really. Again, I also work virtually, so my virtual door is open. Probably the best thing to do is talk a little bit about what kind of work I do, because consulting is a little bit of a big space. You know, it runs all the way from the like McKinsey side of the world down to what we do, which is really specialized and really focused. The company was actually founded by a woman who came from a farming family and just really saw that there was a great need in this space to find better, more sustainable ways to produce the foods that we are all hoping to eat year round. So my role is really a couple of different hats, right? Any kind of small team, lots of relationship building, lots of different kinds of work. So I spend a lot of time working with farmers, with growers who actually produce our food, but also all the way up through their marketing teams. And so there's a lot of different kinds of stakeholders that we need to engage, and we've gotten to do a bunch of really cool projects recently. I can see that Stephanie put our link right in, and so there's a couple of case studies on the website if that's interesting to you. But I would say that one of the most rewarding parts of what I get to do on a day-to-day basis is help people find the why that they're working in, that they need to do sustainability work. A lot of people, especially in sort of the ag industry, get a lot of pressure to do this kind of work from the outside. And so helping them figure out what's most valuable to them and what their story is and what they can really uniquely contribute is something that's really compelling as part of my sort of everyday. And it's one of the things that like gets me really excited to get up and get to my desk in the morning.
You love to hear people who are excited to do this work because it can be quite challenging. But I love to hear a little bit about your why, Gianna. What drew you to the climate movement and to sustainability within that, the intersection of that? I'm not entirely sure how you conceptualize those two concepts coming together in your life, but how did you get here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I kind of uniquely knew that I wanted to be in the nonprofit sector since I was 14 years old. So I kind of knew that that was my goal, but I wasn't quite sure where I fit in. So for a while, I was pursuing sort of like the human rights side of things, justice work. That cause was originally what really captivated me and still really does. But on the personal side of things, I was exploring, I had eaten a plant-based lifestyle for a really long time. I had always kind of been a baby environmentalist. Like I hadn't really dove in headfirst, but I was always big on recycling. And then I kind of found out about the zero waste movement and really dove into that. And thrift shopping had just like, it's always been a part of my life, but it really took a larger place in my life as well. So the intersection of my personal interests and kind of knowing that my calling was mission-based work, it seemed like I was missing something, and I really wanted my 9 to 5 to reflect the fire that was like really igniting in my belly for environmental work. So I honestly have always known about the climate crisis, of course, but no organization really messaged about how this was a humanitarian crisis. This is a humanitarian crisis, and how, much like Marshall Saunders, CCL's founder, he kind of realized one day that all of the great humanitarian work we're doing all across the globe is going to be soon negated if the climate crisis gets out of control. So I had always followed CCL, and then this position opened up and I went for it, not really having much of a background in grant writing, but always working in fundraising and knowing, having a really strong marketing and communications background. My copywriting skills just kind of paved the way for this position. So also kind of connecting back to like my personal convictions and everything, that's how the idea for the sustainability committee was born. I live a low waste lifestyle at home, and just kind of seeing and having a marketing background and knowing how interconnected marketing and communications and fundraising all are. I was seeing all of the great work that CCL is doing to be a sustainable organization, but I didn't see, and I don't see that celebrated outwardly to our volunteers and to potential donors and, you know, the world at large. So that's where the idea for the sustainability committee came into play. And it seemed all of my like-minded colleagues are right there with me, and we've had a great response, and we will be seeing what we can do to be a more sustainable organization and celebrate all of the amazing wins that we've already had moving forward.
Amazing. It sounds like you've really carved out a niche that balances like what you formally studied and what really fills your soul in your personal life as well, which is really what all of us aspire to do in a career. But I also recognize sustainability work is not easy. I think, Kieran, you might have hinted a little bit at what might be the toughest part of your work within the context of sustainability. But what do you think is the biggest challenge you faced working in this sort of field?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest challenges is that for me, sustainability work is the work that I do every day. It is my area of expertise, it is my passion, and it is not a top 3, maybe not even a top 5 or 10 priority for a lot of the people that I work with. And they are preoccupied with some really important things, like how they are going to get a crop in, how they are going to deal with a pest invasion in a way that is maybe more sustainable than the way they did it last season, because we're talking about agrochemicals or something like that. But it really is trying to get this to rise to the top and help people figure out why they want to approach sustainability and why they're going to do the really hard work of figuring out how they can grow the food that Americans need more sustainably. It's not always a context that they're really well versed in. You know, coming out of an academic background, Stephanie rattled off all the things that I have done in the past. This is the thing that I do. And so it can be challenging for folks who don't have as much background in this to just sort of naturally gravitate to it and be like, oh, of course, this is why I should do these things. So there's a lot of sort of sitting down and relationship building to help people feel like we're not here to tell them how to grow the food that we eat. I am not an agronomist, and I have very little to contribute to like soil health in strawberries. So it really is all about team building and trying to figure out how what I know and what my experience is can help complement the work that the growers that we work with have to do every day to do their job. There's a lot of sort of compromise and really a need for good, strong communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Relationship building is always a key part of being able to get people to go on this journey with you. And now, Gianna, you mentioned that like you, obviously we work together, so I know this. We have a lot of colleagues who are very interested in sustainability work. So at least on the day-to-day, you get to work with people who are really passionate about this, but I'm sure that doesn't make it any less challenging necessarily. So what challenges have you faced in pursuing sustainability work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of generally doomism is the biggest challenge we face when trying to live more sustainable lifestyles and bring sustainability into organizations and companies. I think doomism is obviously the issue in the climate crisis as well, and you know, people messaging with really negative tone. But especially, I mean, CCL does optimism super, super well. And that's why we love CCL. But I think when it comes to sustainability, you're asking folks to take more individual actions, and you're asking companies to prioritize things that don't directly tie into their bottom line and might actually negatively impact the bottom line right off the rip. So I think like Kieran said, getting people to understand the importance of this beyond just the touchy-feely thing is I think the biggest challenge, especially when like in sustainability work, especially you know, in a super small organization, if you start a sustainability committee, you're asking folks to recycle, and you have to actually get the recycle company to come out and pick up the recycling, and you have to create the initiatives to reduce paper. So there's such super small things, and getting folks to overcome the individual hurdles, especially when so many more folks are recognizing that the issues we face are systemic. That's a huge challenge. So it really does all go back to communication and hearing what other folks are saying and finding common ground, which is, again, what CCL does really well.
Definitely. Well, it seems like both of you have your work cut out for you, which kind of makes me wonder, anytime we have speakers on here, we ask them, like, what's the biggest challenge you're facing? I feel like the next natural question is, why the heck do you do this? So Kieran, what made you explore this? Like, it sounds like a lot of your life was kind of building up to this, or was there a specific moment that made you say, I'm definitely going to do sustainability, like full-time, 24/7, this is my identity now? What was it for you?
Yeah, so I am actually I saw Liv said that she's from Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from the Pocono Mountains. And so I grew up in this just like absolutely gorgeously beautiful place that I was so lucky to be in, and totally had no idea until much later how lucky I was. But I grew up spending a lot of time outside, and I think there was really no question for most of my childhood that I was going to end up in some sort of environmental space. I asked my mom about it when I saw her this weekend, and she was like, I don't know, you were always like that. Like, it just, that was who I was going to be, I think, from a kind of the beginning. However, I did not come from an agrarian part of Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania has a big ag scene, not where I am from. And so it wasn't until I went to the University of Vermont, which does have a much stronger agricultural program, that I started to see the interconnections between sustainability and not just like the natural resource space and land protection, but also around issues of agriculture and the way that we produce our food. And so I really got behind the idea that there were better ways that we could produce food, and that there really needs to be a big tent approach to how we think about that, because we don't have the luxury of just sort of like turning the whole system off and like rebuilding it. We have to work with the one that we've got, because everyone would probably like to eat while we solve this problem. So I made a shift. I started looking at commodities like coffee. And then when I went to graduate school, I actually got an internship with this company that I work for now. And so I did the thing that they tell you not to do. And I interned there for a semester, and then I didn't leave, and I stuck around for another semester because there were clients and projects and things that were really cool. And produce was really cool, and I didn't want to leave. And then I stuck around again, and I came on as a program manager, and then sort of worked my way up through the ranks. But it really is getting to work on some of the commodities that like we so desperately need. Americans need to eat more produce, not less. And so we need to do more production, but also more sustainable production. And there's this really sort of snarly problem there that I find really intriguing. And so I kind of can't imagine shifting out of the food space now. I sort of fell into it and just got carried on through.
That's amazing. Yeah, we're definitely working with wicked problems, working in sustainability and in climate. But I definitely can empathize with just the excitement that comes around having kind of a new challenge every day, and especially when like agriculture, which is so critical to sustainability, to long-term climate processes, and also is getting a lot more attention recently with more emphasis on different types of diets, and also regenerative agriculture kind of having a moment right now in public discourse. It must be really exciting to work in that space.
It's very cool. It's very cool to be looking at ag as something that maybe is going to be a little bit more leading. It has this history of being very behind, sort of on the back foot, very reactive, not proactive. We've been trying to get our clients to be proactive for years now. We're just lucky to get any kind of reactivity. But yeah, with regenerative, there's this sort of new space. And it's really interesting to see what that will mean for the sort of produce systems, which are often really different from, say, a commodity wheat system. And so thinking about each individual crop needing different treatment and different practices and different rotations and all of that sort of coming together, it is a wicked problem.
Those are the kinds of things that we like to get up and work on every single day though.
Every day.
Great. Well, obviously getting here required some training. I'm struck by how both of you have continued to bring up the importance of communication and being able to speak to different people. And of course, Gianna, you studied comms and marketing in college. What was the most useful or applicable class that you ever took, and why?
Yeah, great question. The first thing that comes to mind is actually not in higher education, which was my 10th grade honors English class. Actually was the class that I literally think about every single day. I had this crazy awesome teacher. His name was Jim Haney, and he was a naturalist, and he introduced us to Shakespeare and how to write succinctly. And that's something that I literally think of every single day. And I fought him on it tooth and nail. I was like, what do you mean writing succinctly? Like, why? Like, what if that's our style? What happened to style? And ever since then, that's completely been thrown out the window. And I'm like, oh yeah, like I gotta cut all these words out. So paying attention to succinct writing is something that I do every single day. But in higher education, I would definitely say the class I use every single day from my undergraduate career is my interpersonal comms classes. I would say interpersonal comms, intro to interpersonal comms. I had an amazing professor, and understanding, I guess, like where people are coming from and the theories behind it really was fascinating to me. And also it really opened my eyes to the ways that we can more effectively connect and reach common ground, and knowing why people behave the way they do and why they're saying one thing and it comes out like this. I think everyone should take an interpersonal communications class. It should be a gen ed in every university.
Love it. You heard it here first, everybody. If you haven't taken it yet, now's the time to register for next semester.
Yep.
Kieran, how about you?
Yeah, so my classes, it actually was a gen ed that I didn't want to take. And it was a communications class, it was a public speaking class that they were adamant that everyone had to take. And my best efforts to negotiate my way out of that failed miserably, and I had to take the class. But it actually turned public speaking, or even just sort of like semi-public speaking, from something that was absolutely terrifying to something that I was not very good at, but could do. And I think there's a big pitch here for finding that thing that might be the thing that you really, really hate because you're really not good at it, and building at least a little bit of competence. Because what then happened is, like, the next semester, I felt like I could do it a little bit better. It was like a little bit better, and it made me better in my language classes, and it made me a better TA, and it made me more employable. And I know that we're talking about careers and employability, and having something that you absolutely can't stand to do because it's totally petrifying, like public speaking is for so many people, it can be really limiting. It can make you feel like, oh, I can't do that, or that interview is gonna be a real mess, put you on the back foot. So just building that, getting right over that edge in a space that was really like, no one expected me to be any good at it. No one had any expectations for like how that was going to go, was a really good space for me to learn to do that. And I'm going to add to that I actually do not remember the name of the instructor for that class, because she took such a back seat in terms of feedback and really let us practice giving good constructive feedback too, which is another one of these like soft skills, talk about transferable skills. No one wants to work on a team with someone who gives feedback that makes you like want to go sit in the corner for an hour. We have to be able to like graciously and find good ways to do that, find good ways to offer the kinds of feedback that help people improve. And so while I will not profess to be the absolute best public speaker, it opened a lot of opportunities up that I probably would never have pursued.
Well, I have to say, I think you're both excellent public speakers, just based on evidence tonight and from previous experiences with both of you. But definitely love to hear that reiterated, just the importance of really digging into that and doing the things that scare us. Leaning into that growth edge is normally where we find we learn the most about ourselves and really grow the most. So the very last question, and before I ask this of each of you, I do want to just tell everybody in the audience to be thinking of any questions you have for Kieran and Gianna. We're a relatively small group, so I think we can probably just have everyone raise hands and ask the questions out loud. But if you are unable to unmute for whatever reason, do feel free to just type your question in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to it as much as we can within the time we've got. But the last question for each of you, in as brief of a way as you can answer it, maybe it's a one-liner. What's the best advice you've ever gotten? And let's start with Gianna.
Okay, I'll be brief, but it was the best advice I've ever gotten was to get involved with something. And I'll just preface that by saying, when you go to college, get involved with an extracurricular or as many extracurriculars as you could fit into your schedule. And then it doesn't end there. Like, if you want to get into the climate space and if you want to get into this work and you don't get an internship, get involved with something. You'll start developing those skills.
Excellent. Kieran, same for you.
Yeah, I'm rolling like 4 or 5 around in my head and just trying to take the best one. I think that the one that I like the best is probably that, actually, I think it's a Bill Nye quote, so it's not exactly advice, but it's that everyone you meet is going to know something that you don't. And so every encounter that you have is an opportunity to learn something new. And if we can lean into that, it helps to fight some of the sort of fear of not knowing that can be so prevalent early in your career that you're just not going to know. There's no way around that. And if you want to work on a sort of cutting edge space, if you want to work in climate, if you want to work in sustainability, the answers are not always out there. There's not a book you can read. You're going to have to figure it out. And so find people who can help you.
Excellent advice from both of you. Thank you both so much. Let's open it up to our lovely audience and see if anybody has some questions. You're welcome to just raise your virtual Zoom hand, and I will call on you as I see you. Or again, you can type questions into the chat if that is easier for you. You've certainly both given us a lot to think about tonight. Hopefully people are adjusting their spring semester course registrations.
As you
their
should
wish
be.
list, yes. Nicole.
Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I had a question on how important is it that you guys have been in the work field to have a master's when you want to work in the sustainability field?
So I'm going to say, as someone who does a little bit of hiring on the side, as one of my like 18 hats that I wear at my job, that it is not a requirement that people have a master's degree. We are typically just looking for people who are really passionate and who are eager to learn. So there are some things that like are sort of non-negotiable for us, and we've touched on them a little bit. Being able to write well, being able to talk to people, being able to talk to people who maybe are not super passionate or super interested and remain sort of enthusiastic and supportive. All of that is really important. Having a master's degree can be great, but it doesn't mean that you'll be good at the kinds of things, those other kinds of like soft skills. A lot of master's degrees don't necessarily vouch for that.
Thank you. I did have follow-up question, if that's okay.
Sure.
So how are ways that you see these other soft skills? How are ways that you are able to judge through like an application that sometimes you're only seeing a resume or something like that?
Yeah, so we always ask for a cover letter, which as someone who has applied to a bunch of jobs, I hate writing. I hate writing cover letters. Everyone hates writing cover letters. I'm sorry. We ask for them anyway because it helps us gauge your writing, which is a skill that just someone saying they're good at writing doesn't tell me very much. And then we do a pretty solid interviewing process where we're just trying to understand what works for people, what kind of work environment they're looking for, but also the way that people respond to those kinds of questions or to new things. We tend to ask people about what's something that they learned recently? Are they people who love learning? Are they people that are passionate about that? It really comes down to the way that you can start to sort of portray some of those things and practice bringing those stories into an interview environment. That's really the best way for me to find that out, much more so than just like working it into your resume and hoping that I catch it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add quickly, if I may, a cover letter, certainly. But I also think that if you're applying to a position that is more on the creative side of things or a little less technical, there's some room for your resume to show who you are as well. Like I had a logo, personal brand developed for my resume, and it is one of the things that helped me stand out for this position. And it speaks to my, like, you know, being earthy crunchy, and it shows my personality, and it's like vintage looking. So I think, like, don't be afraid to also show your personality in other ways where you can and when it's not distracting.
Thank you very much, Jen.
All right, I think we have time for one more quick question if anybody has one. And if not, if these two fabulous ladies have already answered every single burning question you ever had about working in sustainability. Okay, great. I'm not sure whose voice that was, but please do ask.
Gianna.
Hey, Jonah.
I went to school for environmental science, and I currently work with sustainable farmers, like urban farming. I live in the city of Atlanta, Georgia. So I work a lot with small farms, people who have like maybe an acre to maybe 5 acres. And we do a lot of edible landscaping as far as going to people's houses and setting up vegetable plots in their yard. I have questions about, as far as, you know, I wanted to go a little further into that, as far as, like, I'm in the agriculture part already. There's also a sustainability part. How would I go about being in that? Would I have to be a grant writer, or who can I reach out to work more with maybe environmental parts of that, sustainability?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the first resources that can be really useful, and I don't know what the Georgia resources for this look like, it's a big resource for many of the farmers that we work with in California, is the ag extension programs are often associated with universities. And so they are a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of research, but they often have some really interesting resources and interesting programs. And it is their job to do outreach and work with farmers and find solutions. So that's one thing I can think of off the top of my head. I will also say that I will think more on this. And if you want to reach out to me via email, I'm sure that we can drop my email address in the box. I would be happy to try to think of some additional resources too.
Yeah. Go ahead and do that. You could.
Yeah, there's also some federal resources as well too. Yeah, you're welcome to reach out and we can put our heads together and see if we can get you more info.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Amazing. All right, Kieran, Gianna, thank you again. Thank you also for dropping your contact information in the chat. So appreciate it. And I know that this is a little bit late on the East Coast, so if you would like to get back to your evenings, you're welcome to do so. If not, you're also more than welcome to stay with us. We are going to start talking about our election strategy for the November elections and how we're going to mobilize people on campuses. So you're welcome to stay and brainstorm with us as well. But definitely just want to say again, thank you. It has been such a privilege to have you join us tonight. And I hope people will reach out to you with their questions.
Yeah, please do. Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So before everybody does run off, we do have Isa and Marwan here from our Elections Advisory Council, and I am working on pulling up the slideshow for them to be able to walk you through it. And they've got some updates for you since our last call, and also some questions for you to help us inform what we are going to be doing. So also before I do start sharing those slides, if everybody who is on here who is a CCL member could just add your name as it shows up on CCL community and the chapter that you are with CCL into the chat, that would be super helpful, because it'll just allow us to be able to record the fact that you came here tonight. It'll count as a volunteer action for you. So with that, I will turn it over to Isa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Isa. I'm a senior at Virginia Commonwealth University on the Elections Council. We were tasked with working with Ms. Stephanie to create a strategy with the Higher Education Network to enhance campus chapter participation. So the three main points we wanted to encapsulate in our strategy is to educate campus chapters, use CCL resources, and participate in election-related activities. As I said, I'm Isa. I'm a senior at Virginia Commonwealth University. Unfortunately, Allison couldn't make it today, but she's also another member of the Elections Council. She's a junior at Washington University, and Marwan is on the call, so if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Marwan. I'm a freshman at University of Michigan.
So we have a simple but broad ask to make sure that our ask is nonpartisan, but also encapsulates our main point. So our ask is just to vote with climate in mind. So we do have 4 steps to our plan. The first step is initial outreach. Then we will provide resources, mostly from the CCL site, such as the trainings, a part of the core volunteer trainings. We're going to promote using the action tracker so that we can see what people have been doing. So if they've been going to election-related activities in their neighborhood, they can log that as an action. And then we will have a debrief where we send out a final survey to see how much progress we've made and to see what we can do to improve maybe next year. So the first step is outreach, the survey, which will be to gauge existing knowledge. So that will be sent to campus leaders and they can share that with their members as well. It's basically asking what kind of issues they're looking to address, what they already know about their candidates, and how active they are already on their campus. So our second step is to send out resources. We will be doing this by sending them into a Slack with all the campus leaders and as well as their members. If you can see, some of these are trainings from the core volunteer training, such as the grassroots outreach, so they know how to volunteer themselves and to reach out to other members on their campus and to promote the voting with climate in mind. We also have a large amount of resources where they can actually register to vote. It shows them how to use the action tracker, and it actually also has like some fact sheets so they can learn some information about their local candidates. So our third step to make sure that we're tracking the progress and seeing where people might need some extra help is for them to log their actions in the action tracker. So whenever they attend one of the trainings we sent, whenever they use one of the resources, maybe if they went to a local town hall, if they registered to vote, they can go ahead and log that action so we can see how active people have been. And our final step, which is the debrief, the final survey, it's basically just going to be closing out questions from the beginning survey, asking how many events they went to, what issues that they were interested in that they saw addressed, and what they would like to see that is better. So now we can open it up for questions. We would love some feedback as well. And I know Marwan has some questions as well if you want to go ahead and ask. Thank you.
Great, thank you both. Marwan, would you like to kick us off just with the question that you have for everybody, just to get us started, and then we'll all go from there?
Yeah, sure. So as it relates to the action tracker, the main question I had for you all is how often your members or your volunteers in your chapters would be able to update it with the relevant information, particularly if you're talking to people on campus or even off campus, just whomever, about getting them to vote, and who has actually gone out to vote. How often people could log that information, because the more often, it is very helpful for us. So just as people find out, who among whoever they've talked to, whatever they've done on campus, the numbers of people basically that they've been able to get out to vote, that's very relevant and important information for us. So as frequently as we can get it, the better. But please basically just say how often, like once per week, a few times per week, just as it comes. When do you think it would work better to encourage your volunteers to update the action tracker with those numbers?
It's a great question. I know, Caitlin, you've been a campus leader, not to put you on the spot, but would love to hear what thoughts you have on this, because I'm not sure whether Jonah's had this experience. And I know Robin is working with campus leaders right now, but is not one himself. So any thoughts that you have would be fantastic.
Yeah, sorry, please excuse the piano playing in the background. I'm in the basement of the music building in my school. So basically you're just wondering like how often people are using the action tracker, or how like convenient that would be for people. Is that what you're wondering?
Basically, how often could they just log in their actions on the action tracker, specifically the numbers of people that they've been able to get out to vote and the numbers of people they have discussed with. Essentially, how often can people get those numbers in? Like maybe once, like a few times per week, or just as it happens. So as it happens, I'm guessing it probably might be more like a few times per week, but it's whatever people can handle, they can keep up with, that kind of idea.
Yeah, no, my best guess is probably like directly after, if we're doing like a tabling event for voting outreach. I'm not so sure how like common it would be realistically for people to like just after like a one-on-one conversation to track it in. But I think maybe like campus leaders could send like a weekly reminder or something to make sure people are putting stuff in the action tracker. Yeah, to be honest, for me, I haven't like emphasized the action tracking as much as like the doing. So that's a good thing to know, that it's like helpful to put down, and I should emphasize it more. But that's just like my 2 cents on what I think would be going down.
Very helpful. Thank you, Caitlin. And yeah, the action tracker is something that we've really kind of de-emphasized in the past, but it is actually very important in campaigns like this, where it's really valuable to see how things are progressing, how many people we're reaching, and what impact we're having, but also more broadly for CCL to be able to, I guess, keep Gianna employed, to put it bluntly, because that is how we convince our funders and these grants that we go after that we're really making an impact. So yeah, it is valuable as much as possible if we can get info into the action tracker. And I did see Robin shared in the chat that he would be cautious about counting on people to give you regular and structured data. Definitely point well taken. So maybe that's something for the council to consider, what's sort of the point where the costs and benefits actually balance out and you're likely to get reliable data, or what sorts of prompts might be needed to make sure that you do get that data consistently. Any other thoughts on that question, or any other questions for Marwan and Isa?
I guess what y'all just had in mind, like laid out here, was it for kind of like tabling and like just one-on-one conversations and grassroots outreach? I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I don't know if I missed something about the strategy that's going on here. I'm definitely hoping to incorporate more like get out the vote stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure if I just like missed something.
Yeah, Isa or Marwan, I think either of you can take that.
Can you repeat what the question was?
Yeah, sorry, no, that was just kind of like me rambling. Were y'all's like ideas for this like your own personal like election council strategy, or was it more like giving it to higher ed leaders to use specifically at like tabling events or using for initiatives about like one-on-one conversations? What kind of like specifically, I guess I'm looking for like actions for me to be doing, is my main question. Sorry, my brain is kind of off today.
So we are mostly sending the parts of our strategy to campus leaders so they can share the resources with their members, so we can just kind of engage the campus members to participate in campus related activities.
Okay, it's just like incorporating it into tabling and like using that turbo vote resource to make it more streamlined.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Sorry to, bring you off the rails or anything. Thank you.
No, not at all. And certainly our goal is that this can be compatible with what campus leaders are kind of already engaging in, and also provide an opportunity for campuses that maybe haven't had as much mobilization success yet to maybe find the thing that actually really excites volunteers to get out there and talk to more people. But certainly any of the sorts of recommended activities that you'll see coming from CCL overall around our October Earth Day election edition, those are all fantastic ideas that you can incorporate this strategy into as well. Just tracking like who you're speaking to, the types of information you're sharing, and how you're connecting with people.
All right, thank you.
Issa, Marwan, do you have anything else you'd like to ask this group?
One question is, do you all have any suggestions for questions we should add to the surveys, either the beginning survey or the final survey?
Can you give us a sense of like the types of questions that are already on that draft survey, because this group hasn't gotten to see that?
Yes. So some of the questions are just like, what are some issues that are relevant that they're looking to address, such as any issues surrounding climate, any policies surrounding climate. We also have questions asking if they're interested in women's rights, anything like that. We ask how active they are in already the election related activities that they have on campus, what resources they would like to see that would help them be more active, things like that. Just to gauge where they are so that at the end, when we send the final survey, we have a good idea of how much of an impact we've had.
Yeah, just to clarify, is the audience of this people who are engaging with at tabling, or like our CCL members of chapters on campus? What's like the target audience?
The CCL members and chapter member campuses.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, I think that that's probably a good amount of like detail to ask people. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to get a good idea of it. I'll get back to you if I have any ideas on what else to add.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts from the group? If not, to Caitlin's last point, if you do have any additional questions or comments, the elections council members, so Issa, Marwan, and Allison, can all be reached at this email address, electionscouncil@citizensclimatelabi.org. So you can feel free to send us an email with any thoughts that you have about the campaign. Issa and Marwan, can you give us just a quick sense of when campus leaders can expect to hear more about this strategy?
Yes, I'll actually be sending out the survey in the Slack today. And so that will be the beginning of it. We're asking for responses from it by September 23rd. So that gives them about 2 weeks. And from there is when we'll actually be implementing the strategy when we have those answers back.
Outstanding. Thank you for that update, and thank you both for the continued work, and to Allison as well, who cannot join us live tonight. The very last little thing I want to do with our time this evening, I know we have about 7 minutes left, is just share a couple of announcements. We do have our action sheet for the month As always, I'll just put that link into the chat so you all can view that and let me know if you have any questions on that. But the CCL Inclusion Conference is happening this weekend, and it is not too late to register. So if you are interested in the work of our different affinity groups, please do consider registering for that completely free conference. It'll have a Friday evening virtual reception and Saturday a series of really outstanding virtual presentations. We also have internship and fellowship applications open right now for our different opportunities with CCL. The deadline for all of those is October 1st. So if you are interested in a professional development opportunity, Isa is currently an intern with our education and engagement department. Robin is a climate advocacy fellow with our higher ed team. They're really great experiences, and these are for spring positions. So do check them out and see if any of those are a good fit for you. We have lots of resources associated with the Earth Day in October election edition, and actually just earlier this week, we produced, or CCL produced a variety of different tabling materials. So for those of you who are on campus, if you're engaging in any of our election strategy work, you can check out those tabling materials and use them. They're really, really cool. Also some great visuals that you can just print out and hang up around campus. And as always, if you've not done it yet, I really encourage you to join our Slack workspace. That's where a lot of updates get sent out on a more regular basis than our monthly email updates do. So with that, we've got about 6 minutes left. Y'all are welcome to hang out and discuss any topic that you want. And if you'd like, if it takes more than the 6 minutes, I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes after. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss that you're working on or have questions about and would just like to brainstorm.
You said there's a conference Friday and Saturday?
Yes, that is the inclusion conference is being put on by our diversity and inclusion department, and you can actually register. It's the second link in that last thread of messages, but you can also just go to cclusa.org/inclusion to register for that.
Oh, okay. I see what you're talking about.
And it is completely free, gonna be a great time. So please do try to attend if you're able to make it, even for part of it. You don't have to attend every session if you can't.
One thing also I wanted to ask you guys was if you do any of your chapters do anything like vote tripling, if you have on campus voter outreach operations currently, where you, for example, tell people, you know, hey, go talk to 3 people you know about voting, and that's a good way of doubling or tripling your impact. And so if you have anything already like that, or if it's something you're interested in, maybe, you know, make it more expansive, whatever you do, and it can reach more people. If that's something you all would be have any thoughts on, please say so.
I know that we've had campus chapters do this in the past. So like University of Michigan, coincidentally, one of our staffers here at CCL is a UM alum and a UMich alum, and she was a campus leader, and they've pretty consistently done not explicitly vote tripling, but they did have an entire campaign on campus. It was like, I'm a climate voter and bring a friend to the polling booth with you sort of things. So I don't know that they were explicitly going for talk to 3 people about voting, but they have been doing that for some time, and it seems to be pretty successful for them.
Yeah, that's good to know. And like, I think it's especially good to do it if it's you know, like people maybe from different campuses or off campus, just to really broaden the scope. But it's whatever you all have any interest in. So just feel free to just give your thoughts.
All right. Well, it is getting to be almost to the top of the hour and it is quite late. So thank you all for joining us tonight. As always, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me at stephanie@citizensclimate.org. I'll just make sure to put that into the chat as well for everybody. And if you have questions specifically about our elections campaign that Marwan, Issa, and Allison are working on, like I said, you can reach them directly at electionscouncil@citizensclimatelobby.org. So with that, I hope you enjoyed our sustainability themed climate career connections and our great update from our elections council. And we will see you all next month. October 3rd will be our next monthly call. I'll see you then.